Hi, listeners. Welcome to my Holland Update. I'm Marian Manderfield, Public Information Coordinator for the city, and today our guest is Matt Helmus, the Director for Windmill Island Gardens. Hey, Matt, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Windmill Island Gardens is now open for the season. Perfect timing for tulips.
We are. We opened just a little bit ago. April 17 was our opening day, and we've been busy since then.
Great. So let's talk tulips a little bit. How many bulbs are planted on the island in the fall?
We plant roughly 125,000 tulip bulbs every year. So we plant them in all different fields and different beds. So for the large fields, we actually use an onion planter. And for the smaller fields, they're all planted by hand. So it's a lot of tulips, a lot of color out there.
And a lot of work.
Yeah, a definite lot of work. We have a staff that is great every year. We bring in some volunteers. We pull some of our staff from the mill. All hands on deck.
Okay. How many varieties are out there?
Depends on the year and what we order. So with this year, we had about 60 different varieties. We try and get as many as we can. We always get some standard varieties that we know that look good in the field. And then we like to have a lot of different kinds in the smaller beds so people can kind of have a good chance to pick their favorite.
So they change. Some of the varieties will change up each year.
They do. We have a person on staff who puts in a tulip order. They work with brokers in the Netherlands to pick out kind of the best varieties or maybe some new varieties. And we try and get a whole different, really a rainbow, different colors, different heights. We try and get the ones that bloom the latest because here in Holland, we always try and sync our tulip bloom with tulip time. So those are usually the late blooming tulips.
Okay. So if you were there last year, you'll see a different showcase this year of tulips.
Yeah, we try and keep a good carryover. Our staff has some favorites for sure, but we try and have at least maybe a dozen or so of new tulips every year.
Nice. Is there a unique variety that's only somebody will see planted on Windmill Island Gardens?
We usually get a unique variety in town. Since we order from the Netherlands, we're limited to what they grow the year before. But we always try and get varieties that you won't find downtown, that you won't find over at Dutch Village or Valdiers. Yeah, I think every place tries to do that, where they have a little bit of uniqueness to their site.
Okay. The week of tulip time is typically really busy for the gardens, correct? Is there a better time for somebody to go that may be less busy?
Well, it is really busy. We've seen pre-COVID, we were seeing over 100,000 visitors a year, and about half of those folks come during the 9 or 10 days of tulip time.
Okay.
So very busy.
Sure.
But I'm sure we'll talk about it, but we plant a whole different variety of plants, annuals, that go in after the tulips. So we always tell people, if you're not really in love with the tulip in particular, you can always come any other time. We're open through early October, and there's a wider variety of flowers to see at that point.
And who plants those flowers? Who's responsible for the design of those beds and such?
We have a great horticulture staff that does the design work and also the planting. Betsy Morton does most of our design work, and Sarah Simmons and Sam Weaver lead up our team to do a lot of the planting, along with a lot of part-timers. So they get those started in the winter for the annuals, and then they keep those going in the greenhouses we have, and then plant those as soon as we're able to after the tulips are done and the weather cooperates.
And one thing, going back to the tulips, once the tulips are done, tulip dig, will that happen this year?
We are planning and hoping we're going to do the tulip dig on May 22 this year.
Okay.
The Holland and Bloom Committee is still looking at the details of how we do that safely and legally, but we really want to do that this year because there's demand for it both in the community and visitors.
Sure. So stay tuned, watch the social media, watch their Facebook page.
Yep.
Website.
The Holland and Bloom Committee has a great Facebook page that is updated frequently. So as soon as we know those details, we'll have them up on there.
Okay. So going back to the other flowers that will be there all season, is there a peak week on the island for those flowers?
There is. We usually designate a peak week. It's usually towards the end of July, the early part of August is when we tell people, we replant after the tulips are done. That typically is mid to late May. And then after that, we start pulling those and replacing with annuals. So those take a little time to grow into their kind of full beauty. But really by the end of June into July and August, the gardens are looking amazing. And there's a whole variety of flowers. Plus we have a lot of perennials that come into bloom throughout the year. So we tell people there's several dozen varieties of flowers you can see. So if you're asking me my favorite time to visit, it's really that peak time, end of July, early part of August, when the gardens are really, I think, at their most spectacular.
So you could really go during tulip time and then come later in the summer and see a completely different Windmill Island Gardens.
Yeah, completely different. Even our tulip fields, a couple of them will have sunflowers and wildflowers in there for some of the big fields.
Nice.
So it's absolutely gorgeous that time of year.
Okay.
And a lot less people.
Nice. Now tell us there's something that's a little bit unique to the gardens. They have a you all have a community garden, correct? Tell
We
us a
do.
little bit about that.
We do. The community garden has been in place now for, I think, 5 or 6 years, and it started as kind of a staff idea. They always wanted to have a spot where our neighbors in the community could come and garden, and we thought it was a great idea. It's a popular thing in the Netherlands, so it ties in with our kind of Dutch setting. We have 49 total plots. This year we still have about 10 plots left. They're $35 a piece, and we've been grateful year after year to have great community response. People maintain their plot. They show up. We usually have classes involved and some donated plants. It's been really popular.
Nice. So they come and they can plant what they want on that plot?
Yep, we have a
Okay.
staff member as kind of a liaison that can give them some direction and, again, offer some classes. But they have their own 10 by 10-ish plot, and they can plant whatever they want in there as long as they pull it out at the end of the year.
Nice. And then they maintain it too, correct?
Yep, they're in
Okay.
charge of gardening and things. We don't do that for them.
And pulling the weeds if they come, right?
Yep, they always
Nice.
do.
Good. Nice. What would you say is the most unique thing about the gardens?
I really think the most unique thing is we're really 3 attractions in one. I know when I came on board about 6 years ago, there was a lot of talk about what is Windmill Island Gardens? What path should we take? And the decision was really made at that time. We're really first, I guess, a Dutch attraction. We've had the windmill in place for over 50 years. We're happy to have it there. It's the star of the show. We have an organ from the Netherlands. We have a carousel, Dutch architecture. So people think of us for this Dutch cultural artifacts. But we also have gardens, and those were added about 15 years ago now and grow year after year. So we have formal gardens. But then we also have kind of a wildlife setting. We have 36 acres, and if you walk around kind of our perimeter, you'll see all kinds of wildlife. You'll see the Macatawa River. It's absolutely gorgeous, so we're a good public park setting. So we're really 3 in 1. You get the Dutch attractions, you get the gardens, and you get kind of that beautiful park setting.
I don't think many people probably even think about that third aspect of it that you had mentioned in terms of seeing the wildlife and what that might have to offer is something completely different from
Yeah, we're working on that interpretive-wise because, like you said, a lot of people do miss that. Some of the locals who walk and run absolutely love it.
Sure.
They get their pictures of herons and hawks and groundhogs and every other critter that we have out there. Some we love, some are kind of unwelcome, but
Right.
but it's great to see them all. But yeah, it's something we want to start calling out more in the future.
Is there a most asked question by visitors, would you say?
Really, I guess we get a lot of questions about when is the peak bloom of tulips. And that's always hard to say because the tulips kind of, I call it cascade into bloom, that they don't all bloom at once. They start usually in mid-April and they go all the way through mid-May. So we usually get a good month of tulips. So there's really, people always want to know the percentage or what day is peak bloom. We tell people really, if we have a lot of tulips in bloom, it's absolutely gorgeous. So we try and dispel that notion that you have to come on a certain day or a certain weekend. It's gorgeous, usually at tulip time for 2 or 3 weeks. And then again, come later in the summer. It's really neat to see. People think of Holland for tulip time in May, but really Holland's a gorgeous, not only community, but Windmill Island Gardens looks great for, most of the months of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. What if a visitor has an hour to spend, because you could spend all afternoon there, right, with all the different things to do, but if they only have they've got a short window of time, what would you say, what would you recommend they do?
Well, this year's great because we actually changed up our windmill tour a little bit with COVID, to try a COVID situation. So folks just give themselves a guided tour of the windmill, self-guided, so they can wander up and down the windmill in as little as 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
They can listen to our organ. This year you can really see pretty much everything on the island in an hour. So it's really, I would recommend, though, to get out there and just enjoy some of the peaceful settings. Like we had mentioned, it's almost it really is park-like to go out, just go to spots where people aren't and just sit and enjoy. It feels a little bit like you're actually in the Netherlands at some point. When you see nice fields, a river, and windmill, it's just relaxing and gorgeous.
Nice. Well, I think you just answered my next question, which was tell us something that people may not know about the gardens.
Well, I think one other thing is over the years, I looked up the numbers the other day. We've had over 4.3 million visitors since 1965.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
Every year we're busy, but that number kind of blew my mind. The other thing I thought was kind of cool is for the last decade plus, we've actually had Holland residents can visit for free, and we've had over 85,000 visits for free from Holland locals. So if you're a Holland local
Wow.
listening to this, come down, show your driver's license, and you get it to experience it for free 51 weeks of the year, just not at tulip time.
Nice. But you'll still see tulips.
You will. Yeah, there's a lot of locals that come in just before, just after. They know when to come and see those tulips.
Sure. So give us some of the pertinent information, hours, admissions.
Yeah, so at this point, we're open 7 days a week through early October. We start selling tickets at 9:30 in the morning. We stop selling at 5, but the park is open till 6. During tulip time, we sell a little bit earlier at 9 o'clock, and we open a little bit later. We're open till 7, and we stop selling tickets at 6. But again, 7 days a week. We do this year require masks to be worn inside due to COVID. We're constantly monitoring the updates from the CDC and from the health department, but masks are required inside. We do have capacity limits in the buildings, and also the park as a whole is limited to 1,000 people, which really is should only be an issue the weekends of tulip time when we have tons and tons of visitors. So if people are trying to plan their visit and listening to this right away, come during the week of tulip time or come after tulip time. Again, we're absolutely gorgeous. Just those weekends of tulip time will be very, very busy.
And restrooms are open on the island?
They are. Restrooms, when we're open as a park, we do have restrooms available on the island to all the visitors.
Okay. Anything else you want to tell us?
I just think it's a great spot, and especially if you're local, come down. If you haven't been in a few years, come down if you've never been. It's always kind of heartbreaking to hear people say, man, I haven't been down here in 20 years. This looks great. Or I've never been here, and I've lived in Holland for 30 years. We're a hidden gem. We advertise as much as we can, but usually that gets a little further out to markets like Detroit and Chicago and Indianapolis. But we're kind of a hidden gem here in West Michigan. People forget about us, that we have a windmill and beautiful gardens right here in downtown Holland.
Yeah, it's a city park right in their backyard.
Yeah, yep. It's owned by the city. We're happy to have been here for 50 plus years, and hopefully we can keep it going for another 50.
Nice. Well, if people want more information, where can they go?
Go to windmillisland.org, and that will shoot you right to our website. And we have a lot of information, general information, as well as what we're doing a little differently this year.
And follow you on social media. You've got a Facebook page, Instagram page, right?
Yep, and those are gorgeous. You see a lot of pictures of flowers, so definitely check those out too.
Okay. All right, Matt. Well, thanks for joining us today. Until next month, this has been My Holland Update.